You are now listening to Imprint with Nesreen on Yahala Voice.
Our renowned guest on the show, Imprint, definitely left a mark both nationally and internationally. She's a journalist and political activist. She has witnessed the occupation firsthand and since has become an outspoken advocate for human rights, specifically Palestinian rights. She's also the sister-in-law of the ex-Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Our guest today is Lauren Booth. Lauren, it's an honor to have you on the show.
An absolute pleasure to be here.
Lauren, I want to first speak about your activism for the Palestinian cause. What drove you to become an advocate for Palestine and the Palestinian people?
First of all, whatever little I've done is nothing compared to what the Palestinians on the ground do themselves. I mean, there is this thought basis that because we come from outside, somehow we are the main advocates for their rights, but the real advocates are the Palestinians on the ground. And one thing that I learned during my journey to becoming an assistant to the Palestinian people, I hope, in some way, is that solidarity means standing by someone, not coming in with outside ideas and telling people what to do. Although, of course, a fresh viewpoint is always useful. So I'm a solidarity activist, inshallah. And I came to this terrible crime against humanity in 2005. And basically, I went to the West Bank as a journalist, not really knowing what I was going to expect. In fact, I landed at Tel Aviv airport, got off the plane, and I didn't know how to get to Palestine from Israel.
So why did you decide to go back in 2005? What was your motive?
I didn't know. I felt like there was a hand on my back pushing me towards Palestine, and I was writing an article about the elections there. They were taking place in January, the first Palestinian Authority full elections. And it was a very exciting time, and I guess I just wanted to have a look at that big story. But a couple of things I realized when I arrived on the first day. The first was that I was scared of Arabs, and the second was I was scared of Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that wasn't because of the behavior of the people. That was me realizing that I, as a journalist, had taken a lot of baggage in with me. And I had not come with a clear slate to report. I saw the guards around, the security detail around Mahmoud Abbas. Mm-hmm. Every world leader has a security detail. But I saw his security detail as a threat to me because I was a white European. And that told me that I had prejudice I didn't know existed. And from there, what was incredible was just 3 days later, my whole worldview had changed.
So why don't you tell me about your first experience in Palestine? Where did you go?
So I spent a lot of the time in Ramallah, and instead of doing what I understand journalists do normally, which is stay in a hotel room and have people brought to you, and this was told to me by my fixer, the man arranging my interviews, it had never occurred to me to make a list of people and sit in a hotel room. That's not visiting somewhere, that's not finding out the story. So I tended to just go walking off on my own and jump into any car that stopped. Not any car that stopped, but if the lady said, do you want to come to my house for dinner? I'd say, okay. And she said it's in Jenin, and I didn't know where Jenin was. I'd just get in the car and go, which of course gave all of my office absolute palpitations because they were calling it the Wild West Bank, and they were, talking as we do now about jihadists and the dangers. But what I found in every single household that I entered was a sense of fairness, justice, peace, and patience. And that was incredible to me because I could not fathom how these people suffered under the oppression that I was seeing, and yet were not calling for violence. I did not hear people. I felt violent. I felt angry when I first went through those checkpoints. When it was Eid and I was invited to Jenin, and we had to go in a taxi and we had to go off-road because the machinery of the Israeli Defense Force had deliberately blocked roads to break up the holidays for families. And you go down a mountain and you find a path, and then that's been blocked as well by rocks because they know that people will use the little side roads. And then you get out and then you go by foot and you see old ladies dragging suitcases and children crying. And all they're doing is trying to get home to eat, I felt angry, but the people, I thought on that trip, I wrote somewhere that I was worried that the Palestinian people had Stockholm syndrome. And Stockholm syndrome is supposedly where the captive falls in love almost, or, has a respect, an overawing respect for their captors. Because I found them very passive, very accepting. But it wasn't until my second or third visit that I understood that faith allows the Palestinian people a lot. The majority of people that I've certainly come into contact with allows us to see that the next generation will be okay, and there is a plan that goes beyond this world, and it's going to be all right, but you have to stay calm. And that really changed my worldview.
Now, Lauren, one of your trips that received a notorious amount of attention was the free Gaza Voyage in 2008. Now, I know that traveling to Gaza by boat wasn't feasible since the 70s, and even when individuals did take a boat there, it was blown up by Israelis. Why did you do it? Why did you go?
I got an email in the summer of 2008, and it was the craziest email I'd ever read. It just said 2 lines, would you like to go to Gaza by boat, call this number. And I thought, what maniacs are going to get in boats and go try and sail through the Israeli blockade, the Israeli naval forces? What a bunch of nutters. And I thought, what a great story. This is a good story. And then I thought, imagine if they do it and being there. Now, I'd been to Gaza by this point, just for a few days, but I had a tiny taste of, even before the blockade, how this was a hard place to live. And I knew what the blockade meant, 1.8 million people suffering, terrible injustice. They can't move, they can't travel, they can't fish freely, they can't farm freely, you can't get goods in, you can't get them out. It's a terrible injustice. And I thought, imagine if they do it, and I want to be on that boat. So when I got to Cyprus, I had a commission with the Mail on Sunday to write about it. So I was there as a journalist. But as soon as I met this ragtag, crazy, nutty, random group of human beings with good hearts, I just loved them, and I just loved what was trying to be done. And I just reminded me that being human is a great honor. And when we do things together for the good of others, we're at our best.
Now, I want to give a bit of background information for our listeners. On the ship that left from Cyprus to Gaza, there were journalists, human rights workers, doctors, and members of parliament. The ship also carried over a ton of needed medicines for hospitals in the Gaza Strip. I know that when the boat was pulling into the borders, the Israeli warships radioed the ship demanding that the ship turn around or they would open fire and shoot. Tell me about the experience on the boat.
We had some contact. We hid the boats for the boats were hidden in various Cypriot and Greek ports over a couple of months before we set sail, and the Israeli Secret Service were after us for a long time. We had to have frogmen dive under the boats because, it seemed like there were going to be attempts to attach explosives to them. We had agents of Israel trying to come to the boats, pretending to be hippies. What were they trying to do? Maybe plant drugs, maybe plant knives, maybe plant explosives. Who knows what they were trying to do? So there was a lot of pressure. It wasn't just about the actual crossing.
Now, the boats were supposed to leave after 3 days of being in Gaza, back to Cyprus, where the voyage had started. But you weren't on the boat when it left. Why?
Yeah. Again, I didn't want to be. I know the feeling. We were supposed to come and get the world's media to look again at the Gaza siege, to take notice, and then we were to leave. And our safe route out by this point was the boat. And I hadn't seen my children in over a month, and they were small. and I had every reason to get on the boats. But when I got to Gaza this time and I saw what the siege was doing, I felt like a Greek tourist. You know, there's a new kind of tourism where you go to war sites and war zones, and you take a couple of snaps and you go, wow, look at these poor people. And I hated that feeling. I hated the sense that I hadn't done anything. What had I done? I'd filed a report and given a couple of interviews, and I didn't like that feeling, and I wanted to see more, to do a better job. So I thought I could stay for 3 days, because the Egyptians had announced that the crossing was going to be open 3 days after the boats left. So I felt quite safe in doing some more interviews, seeing a lot more, and compiling a much better report and having a better idea of what help was needed. But when I went to Rafah crossing, and this is really important because this is the experience of Palestinians every single day, months in, months out, for 8-9 years. I went and I took my passport, and amongst the thousands and thousands of Palestinians there, I saw a member of the Mubarak regime guards, and I showed him my passport, and he laughed and he said, the Israelis say that if you want to be in solidarity with the Palestinians, you live like them. So your passport no longer means anything at the Rafah crossing. Go away. And I knew that I couldn't get out through the Israeli crossing because I'd already been the week before doing a solidarity action with an old lady, and they threatened to shoot us. So I was now under siege. The boats were gone. There was no airport. There's no train station. There's no highway system to the rest of the world. I was trapped. And it was like being in an elevator and dropping 23 stories in a matter of seconds. I thought I burst into tears. I thought I was going to throw up. And then I thought, thank God, I'm really going to get to taste this. This is for a reason. And I was there for a month. And I'm really, really grateful for that feeling of helplessness, determination, fury, and understanding of what the Gazans in Palestine are going through.
Now, Lauren, given the terrible depiction in the media, did you ever fear your safety when you were in Palestine?
The incredible thing is, there is something, the land is blessed. This is said over and over again in the Quran, that Palestine is the land that is blessed for all people. It's the land that is blessed. And when you get there, you feel so safe. When I'm outside and I'm reading about bombs falling and I'm reading about tanks and incursions, I feel shaken, I feel fear, and I call my friends and I pray for them, and you feel upset. But when you're there, I promise you feel so safe. No, that's a silly thing to say, no. The Palestinians do not feel safe because they have no sense of safety. Mm-hmm. But that connection with the land and with God's blessing, you don't feel scared. That's what I mean. There's no point being scared. It is what it is. You're going to go about and do your job. I didn't mean it's not scary for the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. I just meant because I come and go when I go, I'm just so happy to be there. I feel safe.
So, Lauren, when did you acknowledge that apartheid does in fact exist?
I think I acknowledged that within 6 hours of landing at Tel Aviv airport. I was driven through the West Bank by a Jerusalem taxi driver called Jamal. Mm-hmm. And he showed me a road parallel to the one we were on. And I said, why don't we go on that road? And he said, because it's for Jews only. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's a Jews-only road. If we go on, it will be shot dead because I'm Palestinian, Arab, Jerusalem, wrong plates. I can't go. And I thought, but that's apartheid. Because what else do you call a road system where if you are one race or ethnicity or religion, you can go, and if you're another, you get shot at. So it became clear to me within hours.
Mm-hmm. Now, given that you were in Palestine, and I know that many Palestinians have experienced checkpoints, how was your experience at the checkpoints?
Well, I mean, I've been through so many, and they vary so much, but it is always a denigrating experience. I have felt at checkpoints angry because I've been waved through with a foreign passport, whilst the people of the land are made to queue for hours. And that gave me a sense of shame. Why should a foreigner in the land be treated better than the people of the land? So I have felt that anger. I have felt tired when I've been crammed with hundreds of other Palestinians and we've waited for hours in the heat with no access to toilets or water. And then you go through like a cattle turnstile, and then you're shouted at by a disembodied voice, and then you're made to empty your bag in the middle of an empty room, and then guns are pointed at you, and this is how you get from place to place. And I felt just sadness, really, about these roving checkpoints outside places like Nablus that just pop up, and suddenly soldiers are there and you can't get home. I'd like to share with your listeners actually one of the stories.
Sure, of course.
that still upsets me. I mean, they all do, but this lady's story. Nesreen was from Tulkarim in the West Bank. And I met her in Gaza in 2008 on a protest for mothers separated from their children by the checkpoints. And what had happened to her was 2 years earlier, she'd been leaving her town to go to a funeral, and she had a bag full. The Palestinians in their own land in the West Bank have to carry all of their paperwork with them to prove who they are, to show to the soldiers, to try and plead for mercy and clemency and let us through and let us get home and let us get out. So she had her bag full of stuff. She got permission from the soldiers at the checkpoint. You've got, 12 hours to go to the other town to your family. Funeral, you've got to be back. She got back in 10 hours. It was fine. It was the end of the day. She showed her paperwork, and the soldier she'd seen that morning said, no, you're not coming back in, because although her name and her paperwork showed that she was from that West Bank town, her paperwork said born in Gaza. So this soldier said, you were born in Gaza. She said, but I've lived here all my life. My son is in there. My husband is in this village. Just, look, you saw me. You saw me this morning. Let me just go through. Come on, don't be unreasonable. No, they put her in the back of a van. They drove her to Erez, and they threw her into Gaza. And now she is illegal in Gaza without paperwork. And she hasn't seen her. At 2008, she hadn't seen her son or her husband for 2 years. What is this? What is this sick routine cruelty?
Speechless.
Evil.
Mm-hmm. Lauren, I want to explore another chapter in your life. When you converted or reverted to Islam, what was the first moment when you became aware of Islam?
Yeah, I think I was first aware of, I think it would have to be again in Palestine. I was aware that the people had the Quran in a lot of the households, and that the women covered their hair. And I was aware that everybody was excessively generous. They were like an alien people who had been put on earth to teach generosity. That's how I felt. And then back in the UK, I got a job with the Islam channel. And I noticed that the young people I met, for example, instead of being out on a Friday night, they were in the studio rehearsing sections from the Quran, and these were young boys aged 14 to 16, and they were so humble and so quiet and so peaceful. And I thought, I don't know if I really related it to a religion of God, but I thought whatever their practice is, it looks really nice, and it gives you a calm that I haven't seen elsewhere. But I don't think, I think it was years. I think it was when I visited a few mosques when I was traveling in the Middle East, that the people and the sisters inside finally introduced me to some of the concepts of Islam, and the main one being the knowledge that there is no God but God, there is one God. And I thought, wow, okay, that's like in Christianity. They're like, well, yeah. And then learning just by watching prayer, really, and other people's practice.
So
that came gradually.
Why were you so certain that Islam was the right religion for you? I mean, what motivated you to convert or revert?
I was not going to revert. I was absolutely not going to. In 2010, I was not going to come to Islam interested. I'd expressed an interest in it, but I knew that I couldn't stop my main behaviors. I couldn't stop drinking. I didn't want to stop drinking alcohol. I liked drinking alcohol. I liked partying. I liked smoking. I liked flirting. I liked wearing revealing clothes. I liked eating pork and sausages and bacon, and none of that was, as far as I see, allowed in Islam. So I was not going to be Muslim. But what happened was, in Ramadan, I went into a mosque, and this feeling of peace knocked me off my feet. It just took any pain that I'd ever had in life out of my heart. Any worry that I'd ever had out of my mind. And there was I got a sense of a universal peace and tranquility. And I sat in this mosque and I thought, oh no, it's true. It's Islam. Islam is true. And I fought it and I fought it. I went outside the mosque and I was crying, but I slept the night in the mosque because I didn't want to leave the tranquility. Mm-hmm. And that was when my heart accepted Islam. I didn't really, I took my Shahada a week later because I felt absolutely compelled by the truth of the feeling I'd had. And thanks be to God, I've learned since. And everything that I learn in Islam has made sense.
Now, Lauren, given that you're the sister-in-law of the ex-Prime Minister Tony Blair, many individuals are shocked to hear about your embracing of the Islamic faith. How did your family react to you converting or reverting?
Well, I don't want to talk about people who aren't here, so I'll leave Tony to what he feels. That's his business. But my daughters were really interesting. They were 8 and 10 at the time, and I remember saying to them, I'm thinking about becoming Muslim. What do you think? And they said, we're going to make a list of questions. And they had 3 questions for me, okay? 2 girls living in Europe about Islam. They only had 3 questions. Okay. Question 1, when you are a Muslim, will you still be our mummy? Question number 2, when you are a Muslim, will you still drink alcohol? And question number 3, when you are a Muslim, will you still wear revealing clothes? And that was all they needed to know. And I said, I'll be a better mummy. I'd give up drinking, and I'd dress more modestly. They embraced Islam.
Oh, that's great. So, Lauren, I want to talk about your recent work. You founded the nonprofit organization Peace Trail in 2012. First, I'd like to congratulate you on that. Tell us a bit about your charity.
So our charity was formed after a visit to Gaza in April last year, 2013, when we saw that the major charities who are doing great work are still not reaching into the veins, really, into the capillaries of life in the Gaza Strip. There was nobody in the areas we visited going actually physically into the homes and seeing why certain families, everybody in Gaza is reaching a stage, 80%, I believe, are reliant on some kind of aid to survive. There's massive food insecurity. 90% of the water is undrinkable. So there's nothing like comfort as we know it for the vast majority of Gazans. But some people, some families sink so low down that you don't even know how they're surviving. The state, they live in places that you wouldn't park your car in, filled with rats, going hungry with injured children and toxic water. And these are the families that are not being reached by the major organizations. So my husband and I joined with a family in Gaza and set up a charity to reach these families and find out what is it that they need specifically to start lifting them out of the worst poverty. But we also interested in assisting Syrian refugees and reverts to Islam in the United Kingdom. So we work internationally, but our main focus at the moment is Gaza.
Now, you're currently working on getting aid for Gaza after the heavy rains and snowfall that occurred on December 14th that left hundreds of families stranded. How may one donate? Do you accept American currency, or is it only in the UK?
Yeah, please, you can, anybody listening who wants to help the family, what we're doing at the moment is we have 400 people in specific families waiting to be moved from temporary accommodation, or some of them are still staying in emergency accommodation, to good, clean apartments while their homes are fixed. It's not like the American cleanup when you have storms. It's not like in Britain when we clean up and have storms. These places were poor to begin with, and they're going to stay poor afterwards, and now they're just filthy and stinking. So, sewage gets into the refuse that goes through the homes. So we're moving these families out of, places of disease and illness. And you can donate by going to www.peacetrail, trail as in path, peacetrail.org.uk/donate. There's a donate page, and anybody internationally will find a way to donate there, inshallah.
And Lauren, do you have anything else coming up that you would like to share with us?
Well, on Saturday at Nottingham University, I'm part of a panel talking about the challenges facing people who are, reverts to Islam, and is there a conflict between a Muslim life for a woman and European life? Is there a conflict there? So that's going on at Nottingham University on Saturday night, and on Sunday I'm at the Iraqi. I think it might be the Iraqi embassy in London to give a talk about the floods in Gaza.
Well, we wish you continued success, Lauren, and I would like to thank you for being with us today and sharing your inspirational and motivating stories with us.
Thank you, and I wish you every success with your channel, and feel free to ask me back. You're doing great work.
Thank you very much. Once more, we were with Lauren Booth, a journalist, pro-Palestinian activist, Muslim convert, and sister-in-law of the ex-Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Listen to the radio, listen to
Yahala Voice.